What is going on YouTube? Krono here and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So today we're going to be taking a bit of a break from our free-to-play challenge to go over, I guess we call him pay-to-win Krono's gear setup, his armory, I guess you can call it. I might make this a series overall where I, at different points of my PSO2 journey, I talk about what I actually have, why I've made the decision that I've made. I think I did one of these videos back in Kavaris where I essentially said, hey guys, I went best in slot, here's why I did it, and here's what I've got. So I want to do that again before we get more into free-to-play Krono's gear in the later portion of our series, of our free-to-play series, because we are getting towards the antithesis of what he's going to be able to accomplish very quickly and then start, the slower gear grinds. I want to give you guys an idea of what the end of that looks like and kind of the polarizing differences between what free-to-play is going to be able to accomplish very easily and what, pay-to-win Krono is going to have to, he's already got basically, right? He's put enough time into, he's gotten a hold of. But if you guys are new to the channel, my name is Krono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe. We work our way towards a 10K mark this time around. I don't believe I mentioned in the video now, but we did reach that 8K mark. So thank you guys so much. It means the world to me. I know we've been kind of off and on, like I mentioned in one of our Twitter posts, but we're kind of working on finding that good balance. And I appreciate you guys have come along the way. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. So as you guys can see, we're just kind of chilling here. Oh. There we go. So our current battle power we're looking at is 33-39, and yes, we are, I won't say pretty much best in slot, but we are more or less best in slot for every type of content that we can currently do in the game. So as far as weapons go, we have 5 weapons that we use on this character. We'll start off with our standard Kukulfus weapon, which everyone has access to. We've got augmented full down the line, gear to the teeth more or less, with our Soul, Mastery, Alt Secreta, Death Melt Tech, and Gigas Tech 4. This is going to be the best setup you possibly can have as far as your gear is concerned. Now, I know there's some people out there that are augmenting for max potency, which they're going with, I think it's like 103% overall, but they're sacrificing all of their potency floor to reach that point, and it's just not a good idea as far as gear is concerned. Now, when it boils right down to it, yes, in a situation of a crit, you're going to crit harder than I am with that max potency setup. However, on average, I'm going to push out more damage than you will. That's because I'm not ignoring my potency floor. We're taking care of potency floor as well as potency, and both are important when you're looking at, you do want a healthy balance. So please do not drop your Alt Secretas. Please do not drop your Mastery 4s unless you're just trying to save some money. Mastery 4 is one of those that I'm like, honestly, if you need to drop it, this is kind of where I would say drop down. Right now, Mastery is not worth that much because of the current event, but say it's somewhere in the future, you want to get as much gear as possible, this is where you make your concession. You drop the Mastery 4, you pick up, let's say, a Stat 4 instead. You lose out on the potency floor and the damage resistance, but realistically speaking, you're still doing pretty solid. Just don't drop this for Alt Secreta, or not Alt Secreta, but for Stia or Domina. Like, don't drop both of them. Basically, it's not a good idea. Moving on, we have our Christia weapon. The Christia weapon is super awesome. It basically covers the ability to not need to go for sub for PSE bursts. Realistically, we don't need to have this multi-weapon with jet boots. I just do out of comfort. I probably actually want to switch this over to a Talus because I'm only using this in AoE situations, and in AoE situations, I'm only using Soaring Blade PAs anyway, so the jet boot component of this is completely unnecessary, and I probably will swap that out. But yeah, this allows us to essentially gain back PP whenever we kill an enemy, which is super comfortable. We have this augmented pretty well. We're not worried about mastery on this because, again, we're only fighting random enemies, and the extra added PP from Speed Melt Tech is really, really nice. On top of that, it is also cheaper, at least at the time that we purchased this. Now, it is, of course, later down the line, may not be available for you guys in the same sort of vein, but we did buy these capsules while the scratch is going on for the capsules, which is what I recommend you guys do. Just make sure you stock up. I'll have a video talking about why I make certain purchases at certain times in the days to come. So we have this with Fix of Fatale 3. Higher Fix of Fatale, the better. Fix of Fatale is just really comfortable right now with our current add-on skills. So because we get so much crit chance, or we get decent chunks of crit chance, it's starting to be worth it up to a certain point, but is not always the decision you want to go with, and you'll find out why in quite literally our next weapon. So first we have our first of 2 Tenebrous Blades. Yes, we do have 2 Tenebrous Blades. There's a reason for that, mostly just because I like being prepared for all situations. You don't need to have 2 of them, but if you were going to have 1, this is the one I'd recommend having. So we have our Tenebrous weapon. It's got the potential blitz unit on it, which is fantastic against ice weak enemies, and against seasonal enemies you're going to absolutely crush because of this extra augment here. This augment does give us an extra 5% potency, but it also gives us 25% crit rate. Because of this, Fixa Termina starts to come out ahead. Not only does Fixa Termina actually have more potency, we can actually take a look at this Effulgent weapon a little early. The Fixa Fatale 5 has 13% crit rate. Fixa Termina gives us 15% crit damage. And because it has that extra 2%, it actually pushes it ahead of crit chance. Crit chance, when you start getting closer to 60%, crit damage starts to take over. So when you get close to that 60% marker, and at the moment with this weapon, when you're all set and done, I mean, you've got 15% here, 5% in base, so that puts you at what, 20%? You get another 20% here, so that puts you at 40%, and then you get a 10% from your add-on skill, which puts you at 50%. So all those things stacked together, that's all without Fixa Fatale. If we had Fixa Fatale, we'd be over 60%. So going with Termina is actually definitely useful. And you guys will see that because I'm going to show you guys some calculations near the end of this video as well. Again, we have just a solid suite of tech, nils. I'm not sure why tech is above nils in this situation. I don't know what I was doing here. This is, those of you guys do a bunch of augmenting. Everyone has their own order. To me, this is cursed and I need to fix this, but that's besides the point. So we've got tech, nils, ice exploit, Setsune, and of course, Speedmo tech. This is the first of our specialized weapons. So we have the Effulgent weapon. The Effulgent weapon is fantastic. We have this with Fixa Fatale. I actually got this really cheap. Someone was selling this for sub 3 mil. This, I think, was like 1.82 mil for this Fixa Fatale 5, which is absolutely insane because if you guys look at any other Fatale or any other Fixa 5s right now, they're all like 17 mil and plus for the Effulgent weapon, but I need it on my Soaring Blade since I have to use a multi-weapon, so this was super nice to get a hold of. We have our standard nils tech, 90 def mel tech, and gigas tech. Now, you technically can drop this gigas tech here for an alt secreta, which I would recommend using the gigas technique because the alt secreta will net you 0.1% more damage, but that's at the cost of like minus, what is it? 1.5% damage resistance. And technically, what is that, 20, so 30 HP. I don't think that's worth it personally. So I would honestly recommend going with the gigas tech, but if you want full glass cannon, yes, alt secreta technically is slightly, ever so slightly better. Which is, you're probably wondering, well, then Krono, why do you have alt secreta on your Tenebris Blade? I didn't realize that before I recorded this video. I actually recorded this video once beforehand, but didn't like how much I went on tangents on that one, so we're doing a re-record. But before I recorded this video, I hadn't realized that these were separate and these were different. Realistically, you want to have the same augment set up on both of these. It's the same idea. Basically, you know, you're using your tech, you're using your elemental exploit 2, your def mel tech, and then you want, realistically, you probably want gigas tech for it. Gigas tech 4 is more expensive, so if you want a cheaper alternative, yes, you can go with alt secreta, which is going to give you more damage and also take more damage. So decide on how you want to do that on your own. It's up to you as an individual, but just keep that in mind. It is not a huge difference. We are still Fatale because we don't have access to the Setsune augment, so our crit chance is still worth more. We do take the extra crit chance and we kind of go forward from there. Our units are full. They're all the same thing. They're going to be Soul 4, so nil Soul in our case, Mastery 4, Secreta, Def Mel Tech, and Gigas Tech 4. I think I mentioned earlier, but some people opt to swap out this Mastery 4 for a stat and opt to swap out Secreta for Stia Domina. While I can advocate this is fine, if you need to swap out this Mastery 4, you do lose out on the damage resistance and the potency floor, but it is much cheaper as an alternative. Please, please, please do not swap out your alt Secretas for Stia Dominas. Yes, you will crit harder, however, your average damage will be less. And consistency is going to be important. Now, if you're someone who's speedrunning and you're like, you know, I go for only the most optimal runs, then yeah, sure, that's totally fine. But like that's 1% of the entire community. Most people that do this aren't doing this because they want to do this for more damage. They're doing this because they want to flex the higher potency, not that it's actually stronger. And they will argue that, yeah, my hit was stronger than yours. Yes, well, on average, most of your hits are going to be weaker than mine. So just keep that in mind. Until we hit like, you know, higher amounts of critical chance, like say, you know, we get above that 60% ratio, we're going to see a situation where we cannot ignore potency floor being as low as it is. So this is going to be the setup that you want to go for. If you want to go the Stia Domina route, by all means, go for it. I just don't recommend it over alt Secreta. maybe over mastery if you're gonna do it. Sure, I guess that's fine, but don't drop both. It's not a good idea. But yeah, we're going full Eclairo armor. We don't have any fixes on this just yet. Good fixer choices for us would either be Natura or Performa. Performa is kind of expensive right now. It's, I think for 3 Performa on ship 2 would run me about 14 mil, which I do not want to invest right now because there's a possibility we may end up getting new armor. So that's something to talk about in a later video. So I'm gonna hold off of that for right now. If we don't, then I might invest in some Fixa Performa or maybe Fixa, Natura, which is the cheaper alternative that you can go for that is still very, very good because of the add-on skills that we have. Fixa Natura is going to be super, super awesome. And because of the way that we play now, since we have active PP recovery a lot more often on some of our big hits, the passive PP recovery is going to be very, very nice. We could also opt to go with the offensive PP recovery as well. That's also an alternative to this. So if in case that's what you want to go in, by all means, feel free. But I don't think it's as useful as the passive since you can stack up quite a bit of it. So that's our armor that we've got. I'm going to go ahead and pop over and pull up the calculations for you guys to show you an idea of why I made the decisions that I made. And let's wrap this video up. So apologies for the flashbang. I just wanted to go over a couple of things here. First things first, we are using Cakewalk's damage calculator. You're more than welcome to get a link to that in the video description below and check it out yourselves. Set it up for yourselves. Just a couple of notes because I get people that ask me questions about this and that, show me things like, hey, I didn't get the same calculations as you. What am I doing different? What's going on wrong? First and foremost, make sure that you have an updated version of this. This does update. Last update was on the 21st of December. That was last month. Make sure that if this does update, like say, for example, I'm over on mine, right? Mine, let's say, is missing this here. That means I don't have the most recent update. So trash mine that I have the copy of and pull up the most recent one, make a copy of that. That way, you have what you should be using. Also, make sure whenever you are using something like this, you are updating this to your class and what you're calculating against. I think it's a rule of thumb, you should always calculate against Gigantics. That's going to be the strongest enemy type you've got. It's going to be the most important when you're trying to figure out the amount of damage you're dealing. So right, purples and things like that. So I recommend that you go ahead and calculate versus Gigantics. But if you're someone who farms a lot, you want to calculate against, I don't know, seasonal event rank 5 or whatever, right? Like it's going to change up your calculations and how strong certain things are for you. So it's something you want to keep in mind. As you can see, enemy levels are 60. It's going to change up, how valuable certain weapons are. But this stupid gorge, I love that. But I always recommend going with Gigantics when you're doing calculations, and of course, make sure you have your class and your class level, because that does affect how strong some weapons are. Your level difference and the star rating difference on those weapons is going to affect how valuable and how strong they are. We also have our unit setup here. So we have our augments and our units. This is going to compare against the baseline of the Clophis weapon while fighting a doll's enemy at baseline fixed attack 3. So we can kind of see here what our what's the word I'm looking for, table looks like. That's it. What our table looks like here, kind of the comparisons. One thing of note, you probably noticed the Effulgent Flame Plus at Fixa Fatale 3. I mentioned Fixa Fatale 3 being kind of like the first leeway point into doing this process. Maybe I didn't, but I'm mentioning it now. But at Fixa Fatale 3, that's when you start to get stronger than the Clophis doll. However, you see this is minus. Well, that's because it is calculating as if we have this augment on our Effulgent Flame. However, we also know that we have Fire Exploit, which is going to be a bit stronger comparatively. So what we do want to make sure when we're looking at this comparison is actually to ignore this line mostly. Don't worry too much about it and compare it with Tenebrous Max Potency Ice. Tenebrous Max Potency Ice is pulling from is this right here. You can see we have Secreta here. Like I mentioned beforehand, it's like 0.1% difference. So if we pull up, let's see, Tenebrous Max Potency Ice, we can see 2.21 here. The right thing. I want to make sure I'm missing something here. Okay. 2.21. If we were to go to Gigas, that's Tech 4, Tech 5. Should be Tech 4. Gigas Tech 4. You can see 2.2. Hold on. Did I miss something here? 2.21. This was definitely different when I calculated this earlier. Let me make sure I'm not losing it. There it goes. Yeah, 2.2 or 2.31 versus 2.21. Okay, I was like, I know I didn't miss. Maybe I'm starting to lose it. I don't know. It's been a lot of work recently. So anyway, I recommend going Gigas Technique anyway, but as you can see, that's pulling specifically from this here. So the comparison is just done better. The only difference in these two weapons is about 2, I think exactly 2 not potency, but 2 base damage between the two of them, the Effulgent Flame being at 611 and the Tenebris being at 613. So the comparison's actually pretty solid, and as you can see with Tenebris max potency, we're looking at a 0.75, so about half a percentage above when you hit Fixa Fatale 3. Is it worth making a whole new weapon with all of your augments? No, not really, but as you guys know, mine is Fixa Fatale 5. That was the idea by the end of this anyway, so I made my weapon early and then of course transfer the Fixa later. If you're underneath, notice that it's going to be weaker than just going your Clophis style weapon. So it is something you want to keep in mind as far as how strong these weapons are, but these are just mathematic values. It's not real world. Real world, you may end up running into situations because these weapons are weighted closer towards crit chance that you may crit more often and have a better run. It is something that's important to keep in mind that yes, these calculations are averages. Those averages aren't always going to be what you experience on your end. Some people are super lucky, some people are super unlucky. You may have a situation where your Tenebris weapon just gives you more consistent damage overall, and it's not really, it's just not worth you touching your Clophis weapon. That's not to say that the Clophis weapon is arguably weaker. It's just to say your Tenebris weapon, you just happen to be getting better results with it that time around. Unless you're, keeping in mind or thousands upon thousands of instances on your end, that testing or real world testing versus, spreadsheets is very, very difficult to compare the two of them, which is why I say spreadsheets is just math. Go out there, do your own testing if you'd like. You're more than welcome to go about this process however you'd like to, but that's pretty much it. I wanted to show you guys really quick here. You can see Stia is not super far behind at, this one being at about 4% overall, not too bad. I've had some people talk to me about Obsidia. No, just flat out no. I'm sorry. It's just not great, and it's not worth putting your money into when you have Clophis that's basically free. They've handed out during this event, and even after the event, not difficult to go after. Before Clophis, sure. I mean, I'd recommend personally setting up a Stia. If you're not going to use a Stia, then yeah, go ahead and go with Stia. But if you're someone who is, building their way up, it's not really worth investing in Obsidia when you're going to flat out outscale it. It just isn't worth your time. Now, if you had it beforehand, sure. A lot of us used them beforehand because they were the best weapon back in Kavaris. But going through right now, I wouldn't recommend it, and it's why Free to Play didn't make an Obsidia. He just made a Stia and skipped Obsidia completely. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe when you keep up with more. Don't forget to join the Discord, by the way, in case you guys have your own builds you want to talk about. I'm more than happy to go over with you guys, but keep in mind that, maybe not everyone agrees with everyone else. So try to be respectful of one another. Anyway, thanks everyone. Take care. Peace out.